Hi friends, welcome back to another Sims 4 video. As you can see, today's video is a little different than usual. So today's video is actually a tutorial. I think landscaping is one of the most important parts of building in The Sims, and is one of the things that once you learn the basics, you can really have a lot of fun with it and really make builds your own and make them feel unique. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. So yeah, you can turn kind of a boring old house like this into, well, this. So yeah, hopefully over the course of the next few minutes, I don't know actually how long this is going to take, you can figure out things and learn some things that you may not have known before. So as you can see, the house is completed. Let me go into build mode. The house is completed, or at least, you know, as much as we need it to be. You know, we can use a mailbox, but we don't really need the interior of the house. And the first part of this series will just be focusing on the front yard. So in terms of landscaping, I'm considering, you know, the plants in the front, the path to the street, and some side shrubs and stuff. And then the backyard is the backyard, which we can maybe work on another day. So like I said, I don't want to take too much time on this, so I might cut some things out, some of the boring things, but I do want to make sure that no matter your skill level, you learn at least one thing during this video. So the first thing I do want to talk about is, even though I think they did fix it in the recent update, the best way to landscape is to, well, first have move objects on. If you don't know, move objects really lets you move objects and lets clipping occur. And so that cheat is one of the most common ones. It is bb.moveObjects. Nope, sorry about that. bb.moveObjects. Sorry, my pinky finger hit enter before my ring finger could hit the S key. So yeah, that's why I screwed up the first time. So there are a ton of cheats in this game. It's so easy to screw up, so many of them. But yeah, so what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the most important thing is you want to do first off is when you're doing like the basic landscaping of putting plants up against the building, you want to make sure that you don't have a foundation lifted, or the foundation lifted up. Also, I want to apologize for my voice. It apparently decided it wanted to stop working as I started recording this video, and it's, you know, allergies and everything are making me miserable. So hopefully I don't sound too bad. So yeah, as you can see before, how it, like, if I pushed it in too close, it would start to lift up. Well, because there's no foundation here, that's not a worry. So okay, so with that being said, one of the other important things, especially in a house like this where there is kind of two symmetrical sides sticking out, is you want to make sure that both sides are landscaped either asymmetrically or symmetrically. I know that's the only two options, but you really want to make sure that you know what you're going to do beforehand, because if you're going to do symmetrically, you can do like pure symmetry where everything is identical on either side, or you can just kind of do weighted symmetry, if that makes any sense, where you, even if the plants are different, the overall weight of that side is about equal to the other side. So if I was to do like a tall plant like here, and I'm just kind of throwing things out, maybe I would do another size, or, you know, a different plant on this side that is just as kind of round, so it doesn't look as weird. It doesn't look great though, I'm just kind of using it as an example. And yeah, so this is what we get. It's not, you know, like I said, it's not the best, but it is, I think, working for a kind of lesson. So let's get rid of those, actually, because like I said, they don't actually look nice, but they served the explanation a little bit better. So, okay, another thing that is important to know is, you know, you can size plants down and up. And two of my favorite plants in the game are, one is base game and one is from Jungle Adventure. They're both sort of identical in appearance. As you can see, this one is here, and this one is here, and they make around the same shape, you know, overall kind of look, almost like they were probably used from the same mesh or something. But if you notice, the one from Jungle Adventures is bigger, But if you size it down, they're actually the same size. So this is the normal size, as you can see. Let me bring it in again. Yeah, so these are the normal size, and then this is the size down Jungle Adventure. Now, unfortunately, if you want these base game plants to be equal to the normal Jungle Adventure size, unfortunately, sizing them up won't warrant the same effect. As you can see, sized up base game plant is massive compared to the Jungle Adventure one. Now, what does that necessarily mean? Not much, really. You know, you just make sure you know that kind of stuff going into a build and don't plan around maybe using these plants if you are thinking of sizing them up. But you can size down the Jungle Adventure one and it looks perfectly fine. See, I could make this side really flat and then this side could be really tall and it wouldn't look as weird because it's purposefully not, you know, symmetrical. But then if I was to, you know, use these maybe, you know, these 3 plants and then, you know, maybe throw that one in on this side and then have it almost be identical, but like have it be really off in some aspects, it might not look right. So, you know, there's really no wrong way to landscape. You can, you know, some things just take longer to make look, or to make right, I guess, is the best way to put it. You know, some strategies don't work out as quickly as others do, but pretty much anything can be achieved, and that will bring me to a later lesson a little bit later. But first, I do want to maybe focus on finishing off this side. So another important thing is to remember to add rocks. You can now do 2 different kinds of rocks. You can do these large rocks, or you can take these large rocks and you can size them down. So you can size them down and make like a path if you want. A path is important because a path can be really free form and you can have some natural curves without looking too weird. So that is an important part of a path, as well as you know, terrain paint is you know, what's going to help you with that. And with terrain paint, there's also, you know, dirt that you can add in. You can add in dirt, which is really important to these parts. Apparently there's been a glitch though in the game where terrain paint has been disappearing over time, and so that is something to keep in mind, to make sure that you keep an eye out on that in case that happens to your build. It's rather unfortunate, and I really wish it wasn't the case, but there's nothing we can do about it. So hopefully it gets patched or fixed quickly, and until then, just keep an eye out on your builds and make sure you don't run into that. And if you do run into that, make sure to go back over and get everything fixed once again. So yeah, so see how that isn't necessarily a straight path. It's kind of, you know, a little to the, you know, it's a little weird, which is cool. I think it really adds a lot to builds, because in real life, when things are worked on, a lot of times they do this kind of path because it just feels a little more natural, and that's you know, really nice, I think. So one thing I do want to cover before I finish this path is another important aspect about landscaping. Well, it really matters to a lot of different aspects of building in The Sims, but one important thing is to hold down the shift key when you're planting things down or placing things down that you want multiples of, because it will make sure there's a copy ready. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Now, if you'll give me a couple more minutes, I will finish this up off recording, so you don't have to watch the boring. Okay, so the path is done. There are some things that you can do to make this path look a little bit better, and I will talk about that right now. It has to do with terrain paint. One important thing you can do is you can go for the smallest size, and then you can just kind of go over the sides where the rocks are, because that you'd kind of imagine that maybe the rocks would be on dirt, and then the path would be, you know, whatever material you want. So now we are going to have this lifted up. If you recall, we're going to have it lifted to about this height. So I want to make sure the stairs work in the area, but I'm also not done yet. Yeah, see, that looks pretty good. I could maybe push the rocks out just a little, maybe flare them out like that. But then let's drop the house back down. Now we should go back and make sure we're finished with this side. There is one thing I do want to add to this side of the landscaping. I do want a taller plant, maybe this kind of flower sticking up, and maybe this one, so then we'll have a little more to work with on the other side, because I do like, I can size this down, and we can use this, this plant on this side to kind of mirror, but not necessarily be identical to the landscaping on the other side, if that makes any sense. So one thing we can do is we can use these plants, which I don't really use that often. They're a really good plant, but I never use them. I think because they're the first option, my brain just skips over them immediately. So maybe that's why, but I'm not 100% sure. So now this flower, I'm actually going to use a little bit later for something, so I'm going to leave that there. Don't pay too much attention to it. If you are if you're a beginning landscaper, you probably already know what I'm probably going to do with that, because it is a very common thing, but it is something that I think not everybody knows. So if I could share that information in a bit, I will, if I remember. So let's take that, size it down. Okay, and then let's give it... See, oddly enough, we've actually been pretty fortunate, and there's no clipping into the house. The one thing I would say, if you do experience clipping, don't worry too much about it if you're going to be raising the house up on a foundation, because if it's low to the ground, then it's going to get covered by the foundation anyways. So that is something to keep in mind, but it's also something you do want to look out for. So, I might add these plants, and I know you might think it's going to start to look a little lopsided, but if you notice here, these plants are a little bit taller than this side. So if you kind of go down to this level, this flower or this plant does not stick out as much as you think it did, or it would. And another thing we can do to get by that is, if you do start to feel a little odd, you can add intentional things to get it to feel a little bit different on one side. And that, while the actual base plants are about even with one another, because we have these plants on the wall, it really does kind of elevate it to another level and kind of make the build feel a little bit asymmetrical instead of symmetrical, I guess. I think that really kind of lifts everything up just a bit. Though, with the flowers, you do have to remember, with both of these, that when we raise it on the foundation, it's going to look probably a little weird. So, knowing that, what we might have to do... Well, this one looks more natural because it is a window thing, but this side looks a little bit weird. So if we push these plants out a little bit more... So, with this being the time, I guess, I should probably talk about what I was going to do with this. So there's a couple of options. With the exterior, we can go to the planter box and find this round planter box, or really any planter box. I'd say this round one works the best. And we can take this plant, and without sizing it up or down, just kind of plop it in there, and it clips in, and it looks really nice, and you can put that on the porch. And just kind of looks like maybe a plant that they water and they take care of themselves. And I think it looks really nice, but it may not be for every build. And, just keep that in mind. It's something that can really add a lot to the front yard, the front deck, or the backyard, or really anything. So let's add some flooring down here. And... I do like this fence, but let's make it the white to match with the doors and the windows. Let's, we might actually be at the point where we can lift this up onto the foundation and be done with it. But there are a couple more things I do want to add afterwards. But let's just, let's take a look at that. That looks pretty good. I would probably move the mailbox, so let's move it to right here. Just because then it feels a little, further back and doesn't feel as in your face. So then what could we do with this build to make it feel a little more homely, a little more natural, maybe fit it in with the area, which isn't the best thing because, as you can see, this house I did a long time ago, or a couple months back, was meant to be like a rundown kind of fixer-upper style home, and so maybe I don't want to make this house look like that. And then this house next door is just another kind of random build I did. This is like random row, where I just kind of do random houses basically. This was the most expensive tiny house that I had ever built, and yeah, so, normally if you're building a neighborhood out, you'll have some things to pull from. Unfortunately, with this build and where this house is placed, I don't really have that because I didn't think that through when I was doing this. I could have probably picked a better lot, though I could, take from stuff from this side, but I don't really like, this neighborhood because, there's nothing we can do to change it. So, it's kind of annoying. So another thing that I forgot to do is I can add now a window. Now if we take a look, what are things we could add to this side to really match this side? I think a rock would be really nice. And something to match this. So maybe let's go into sculptures. Could take one of these, not really, because there's nothing that it's needed for. Maybe this, size it down a bit, and just kind of plant it. Even though they're not, identical, at least there's an object on either side. And we can do one other thing, add some trees. So now you'd want privacy here. So one of the really good ways to add privacy to, the appearance of privacy, I should say, is to add a couple trees. My favorite trees for adding privacy are these ones, the slender cypress trees. You can add a row of them and they look really nice. They really remind me of back when I lived in the Bay Area when I was a little kid. There were trees like these all over the place, and squirrels would would jump in between them, and it was really fun. And it wasn't fun, but it was really fun to watch, I should say. And these trees really remind me of my childhood, just standing out and watching squirrels jump between trees. And one other important thing to do, place down some terrain paint to have dirt. And then you can also add, little plants, but that's not 100% necessary. You could add these that are like roots. I don't really want them in this build though. You could add really anything. You could add these base game plants because, it's really hard to trim around the tree stumps. So this kind of stuff oftentimes grows. Also these overgrown plants like this. So yeah, that's something you can do to add realism to your game. And then on this side, because there is a gate right here, you may not want those trees to be blocking, but you may want some, something on the side. So you could add this tree that, even though it leaves this area open, it still kind of fills that space, at least on a two-dimensional plane. So that is something to think about. You can also add a bigger tree. I don't like this tree just because it feels too much like it's a low resolution image that is meant to appear like in the back of the game, like in the mountain area, because I don't know, it's like it just feels very blocky, if that makes any sense. So I don't like to use that plant. I do like this tree, but it just doesn't work here. I like this tree. I just grabbed the same one, didn't I? I really like that tree, though. That's a testament to it. This one's a good one. This is a good tree. I might use this one here. Because the white bark really matches with the scalloped siding, and I really do think that is a pretty good look. So let's just add some more rocks. You can feel this out, feel what needs to be added in. It starts to come in as second nature with some of this stuff. You start to see things, and you'll know your own style, which I would recommend just building it out, doing landscaping, and you'll really find your own style really quickly. You'll find things that you like, things that you don't like. There's probably parts of this landscaping that you're like, oh, that's terrible, and that's completely fine. That's just stuff that I've started to do, or stuff that I've been doing for years that I really gravitate towards, and stuff I really like. So I could do some furniture here, which maybe I will do, but that starts to get into the territory if it's not really landscaping, if you're adding like a bench in. But, you can do really whatever you want here. And have a lot of fun. You could also add these poles to the corners to really accentuate the build. Now, is this necessarily landscaping? No, but I think it does help the curb appeal of your build, which ultimately at the end of the day is what landscaping is trying to achieve. So in that aspect, I do consider stuff like that important to landscaping. And it's also good because then, you know, maybe I want to push in these plants a little to let those kind of shine on through. And yeah, what else is there to do? You know, there's really no end in sight. You know, it's one of the downsides to building is you could be building the same house for a year if you really wanted to. You can just constantly make little changes, and that is, you know, something that I would try to avoid. You know, you do want to keep building different builds because that'll help you learn. So with that being said, I think this concludes part 1 of a landscaping series. I do want to kind of cover the bases of the backyard, but that is going to have some different things, and some of the things will be the same, but it'll have more to do with making your build personal to whatever Sims you have in mind to live here. So if that sounds interesting to you and you are not already subscribed, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I would like to do more builds more videos like these, but I also do speed builds, and I do hope to one day do some Let's Plays once my voice sounds better from allergies and stuff. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.